Hello there. I'm making this video to show off my Mamiya 645 film camera. I've had it for about a year now, and I've always wanted to make a short review and just show off some of the features and basically give my opinion on what I like and don't like. There's a lot to love about this camera. It's not going to be a crazy in-depth video, but hopefully it'll be helpful. So yeah, let's get into it. So if you're watching this video, you're probably new to maybe film photography, or at least medium format film photography. You might be thinking about buying one of these cameras and you're doing some research. So yeah, there's a few things I wanted to tell you about this camera. A, being that this is a system camera. So you don't just, you can, but usually you would buy different parts and assemble this camera to how you like to shoot. For example, I purchased this viewfinder that has a meter in it, as opposed to a waist level finder that doesn't have a meter in it. I like to be able to meter my shots and not rely on another light meter, and for me it's just easier and quicker for me to shoot that way. But before we get into that, let's just go over and look around the camera. So right here we have a hot shoe, so you can mount a flash there or a trigger, and it's on the side, and I've mounted a flash here before and it looks pretty goofy with a gigantic flash hanging off the side, but it works. So yeah, it's better if maybe you're vertical, but it'll hang on there. You also have a mirror up option. If you do shoot with the mirror up, you're not going to be able to use your viewfinder because the mirror isn't bouncing the image into the viewfinder. So it helps to use the mirror up if you want to reduce vibration, but you need to dial in all your settings, your shutter speed, your aperture, and focus, and then flip the mirror up and then fire. Here we have our dark slide, and in order to use the camera, you have to take this out and store it back here. That way the light's going to be able to travel through the lens and hit the film back here. There's a nice safety feature, so if you do have your dark slide still here in the back, you're not going to be able to fire the camera. So you can't be taking pictures, think you're getting a shot, and realize that you have the film back in and you have all these blank exposures, so the camera won't let you fire unless you have this pulled out. Pretty handy feature. Okay, so here on the back of the film back, there's a little insert here where you can cut out a piece of the box that you buy your film in, and it'll say whatever, Portra 400 or Tri-X 400 or whatever it is you're shooting, and you slide it in there, and it's just supposed to be a helpful reminder. Working our way around, we have our film speed dial. So if you're going to shoot Portra 400, you can set it to 400, and the film back will directly communicate to this metered prism here, and when you look through the prism, it'll tell you if you're under or overexposed, and so that's really handy that I don't need to carry around an external light meter. Of course, there's always going to be reasons to use an external light meter, but it's great to have the option if you just want to shoot quickly and not carry extra gear around. Moving right along, we have our shutter speed dial right here, and it goes from bulb to 1,000th of a second. I guess the slowest shutter besides bulb, it says 4. I'm assuming that's a fourth of a second. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure that's right though. I don't think it's 4 seconds. Should we find out? Let's find out. Okay. Okay, maybe that is 4 seconds. Yeah, 4 seconds. That's what 4 seconds sounds like. Your flash sync speed is 60th of a second, so that's pretty slow. It's really hard to use a strobe or flash outdoors during the daylight and use such a slow shutter speed. You can probably use a leaf shutter lens, or you're going to have to use an ND filter on your lens. I've really wanted to fool around with some outdoor strobe lighting with this camera, but I haven't gotten around to that. Usually if I'm outdoors, I'm just going to shoot with natural light, and if I'm inside, I'll pop a flash or a trigger on here and just bounce some flash around the room. Maybe I'll show some pictures of what I've taken using some flash with this camera. Let's see here. Right here on the side we have a multi-exposure setting and our single exposure setting. If you do end up buying this camera, I wanted to test it out and make sure everything was working. And so you're able to fire this camera without any film in it if you turn it to the multi-exposure setting. So if you just want to test things out and make sure your camera's working without any film in it, you can turn it to the multi setting and that'll work. Otherwise, if you have it set to single exposure, it's not gonna do anything for you. All right, let's see here. Here we have our power button all the way to, I guess, the right here, if you're looking at it. That's off. In the middle, we have our regular power mode, and all the way to your left is the self timer. So let's see. Should light up, and that should start blinking pretty soon here. There it goes, and it should fire. Boom. Let's take this thing apart and I'll show you what it looks like disassembled. Take the film back off here. That's the shutter curtain. It's all cloth, so be very careful with it. You don't want to tear it. It's pretty flimsy. If you end up buying one of these, make sure that after you wind it up and take a few pictures with it, that this shutter curtain is nice and tight and taut. Yeah, I've heard, you can have problems with it being loose, and it's, yeah, not ideal. Here are the connections that talk to the film back here, these gold little connections. And so sometimes if you're having a problem, you just want to make sure that these are nice and clean and the film back's communicating with the body here. And here, if I can get this off. Oh, I think I gotta take this lens off first. Here's the lens release right here, this little switch right there. Just pull that back and that'll come off. Now I can take off the there we go. So after struggling with that, I thought it pulled out back, but I guess it just pulls straight up. I hardly ever take this thing off. There's no real need to. So you can see in there, I need to buy some focusing screens. There's different focusing screens you can put in there, and it's gonna, help you with focusing. So yeah, Also, you see these gold connectors. You want to make sure all these connectors are nice and clean and everything's talking with each other. Okay, so let's talk about lenses for a second. When I first got the camera, the first lens I bought was this 80mm f2.8 lens, and I really love this lens. It's small, it's not very heavy, the focusing ring is really smooth. There's a little bit of a vignette all the way open at f2.8, but it looks really nice to me. I love it a lot. It's nice and sharp, and yeah, it's a great general purpose lens. And if you've never shot medium format before, an 80mm is going to look more like a 50mm. That's just because there's a reverse crop factor if you're comparing it to 35mm terms. So same thing goes for this 55mm lens that I picked up not too long ago. This 55mm is going to look more similar to a 35mm lens if you're used to shooting, you know, a full frame 35mm camera. All right, so now I want to show you basically how to load some film in the camera, in case you're not sure how to do that. I'm going to pop open the back here, take out the film insert. This is a 120 film insert, and so you can buy a 120 or a 220. They're both the same type of film. It's just the 220 is a longer roll of film, so you can shoot more shots with the 220 roll. I just have this 120 insert, and so that's what I shoot, and I get 15 shots per roll. So maybe I'll go in for a close-up here. So you have these little guys that flip out. This is from the roll that I previously shot. And so I'm going to put it back here on the bottom. Put it on the bottom, the empty one on the bottom. Grab some film here. Let's load up some Tri-X. And there's this little tab at the end of the roll of film. And we're going to put it on. There's this little white thing, and it lines up with this little opening on the roll of film. There you go. Roll it over. And there's a little slot in here for this to go. Pull that through, bend it over, tighten it up, make sure it's nice and tight, and we'll start to roll this back. And you'll see right here, this arrow should line up to where it says start right here. So that says start, and this arrow on top needs to match up with that. Boom. Now we're ready to rock and roll. Throw that in here till it clicks. Shut the film back, and line this up, and you'll see the film counter right here. It was on start, and now I'm going to roll it, and it'll click when it gets to shot number 1. Boom. Yeah, shot number 1. So then I'll fire my camera. Can't fire it because that's in there. Boom. Now I'm ready to take the next shot. Okay, just a few more things in this review. One, I wanted to talk about mounting the lens, and especially with this viewfinder here. Let's see here. So you should see this little pin right here, and that pin is hooked on a chain that's connected to the viewfinder. And if you see here on the lens, there's this little it's called a coupling ring, and the pin right here fits in this groove on the coupling ring, and it couples the aperture ring of the lens to the camera body here. So when you mount your lens, you need to make sure that this coupling ring falls into place with this pin. So when you mount the lens, it should pretty easily fall right in place. Sometimes it doesn't though, and you need to fiddle with it for a second. But if that coupling ring isn't in alignment with the pin, your metered prism isn't going to know what f-stop you're at. So when you turn your aperture ring, you should see that pin sliding back and forth. And so now I'm at 2.8, and it's all the way off to the side. It knows it's wide open. If I stop down all the way to f22, it's on the opposite side, and my viewfinder knows I'm stopped all the way down, so it's going to know how to meter correctly for my scene. I also wanted to show you what the negatives look like. So, got some film back here. Here you can see just how big a medium format 6x4.5 negative is compared to a 35mm negative. There's just so much more resolution here, and it's always very satisfying to get back a negative with all this resolution on it. Alright, well, I hope you learned something from this short review of the Mamiya 645 Pro TL. Let me know if you have any questions or feedback. So yeah, I want to make more videos about maybe this camera or other cameras. Let me know if you're interested in seeing more videos. I wanted to do a video on this Yashica this Yashica TL Electro X. It's a 35mm film camera, and I really enjoy this camera. This particular copy is having some problems right now, but I'm definitely going to get another one of these because I do love it very much. It's a real fun camera to use. Might do a video on this Voigtlander Jubilar. This is a medium format camera, and it shoots 6x7 negatives. It's a really old camera with this leaf shutter lens in here, but it's an interesting camera to use. So let me know if you're interested in seeing more videos like that. So I will see you next time.